6 months after the Krazoth arrived on Earth, much had changed. The aliens controlled most major cities and had set up massive processing centers where they sorted humans into categories: workers, test subjects, and food. Their massive ships hovered over conquered territories, casting permanent shadows on the land below. But despite their apparent victory, the Krazoth were growing uneasy. Captain Samantha Green crouched in the underbrush, her face smeared with mud to mask her heat signature. Around her, 5 other members of her resistance cell waited silently. They had been tracking this Krazoth patrol for 3 hours, staying downwind and moving only when the aliens were distracted. "They're stopping again," whispered Eric, the youngest member of their team. At 22, he had been a college student when the invasion began. Now he was one of their best trackers. Samantha nodded. The patrol of 4 Krazoth warriors had paused in a small clearing. She watched through her binoculars as they scanned the area, their large heads swiveling in that jerky, predatory motion that still made her skin crawl. The aliens were clearly nervous, moving in a tight formation with weapons ready. 6 months ago, they would have spread out confidently, certain of their superiority. Things had changed. "Look at them," said Diane, their communications expert. "They're staying close together, pack mentality." "They feel safer in numbers," Samantha smiled grimly. "Too bad, that makes them more predictable." Her team had learned much about the Krazoth since the early days of the invasion. The aliens' heavy exoskeletons, while providing excellent protection against direct attacks, made them overheat easily in humid environments. Their enhanced senses were both a strength and a weakness. Their hearing could be overwhelmed with the right frequency patterns, and their thermal vision was nearly useless in the rain or extreme heat. Most importantly, the Resistance had discovered that the Krazoth were used to being feared. When that fear disappeared, they became confused and often made mistakes. "Get ready," Samantha told her team. "Remember the plan. No direct engagement." She keyed her radio twice. 2 clicks in response told her the other teams were in position. The trap was ready, miles away. In what had once been downtown Portland, Steve Martinez made final adjustments to his latest creation. The former mechanic had become one of the Resistance's most valuable asset builders, taking scavenged alien technology and repurposing it for human use. "Will it work?" asked Ben, his assistant. Steve closed the panel on the device and wiped his hands on a rag. "Only one way to find out." The device looked like a jumble of mismatched parts, half alien metal, half human electronics. But its purpose was simple: to generate a signal that would disrupt the Krazoth. Neural communications. Early studies by Resistance scientists had revealed that the Krazoth used a form of low-level telepathy to coordinate during hunts. It wasn't mind-reading, but rather an evolved version of the pack instincts of their ancestors. By creating the right interference pattern, humans hoped to break that connection. Steve checked his watch. Samantha's team should be in position by now. Time to power this thing up. He flipped several switches and watched as lights began to pulse on the control panel. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then the device began to emit a low hum that gradually rose in pitch until it was just at the edge of human hearing. "Now we wait," he said. Back in the forest, the Krazoth patrol suddenly stopped moving. One of the warriors tilted its head, as if listening to something the humans couldn't hear. Another shook its massive head violently, like a dog trying to clear water from its ears. "It's working," Diane whispered. Watching through her own binoculars, the Krazoth were now moving erratically, their normally coordinated movements becoming jerky and uneven. 2 of them began arguing, their harsh language carrying through the quiet forest. One slashed at a tree in frustration, leaving deep gouges in the trunk. Samantha pressed a button on her radio, sending a signal to the next team. A mile east, Ryan and his team activated their part of the plan. They had set up speakers throughout their section of the forest, each one carefully hidden and waterproofed. When Ryan triggered the system, the speakers began to broadcast sounds designed to confuse the Krazoth's sensitive hearing: heartbeats, footsteps, and voices, all moving in different directions. The alien patrol froze, then spread out exactly as the Resistance had predicted, their pack cohesion broken by Steve's device. and now confused by the sound patterns. They made the fatal mistake of separating. Samantha gave the final signal. Throughout the forest, hidden teams activated mechanical traps. Not sophisticated technology, but simple devices that humans had used for thousands of years. Snares, pitfalls, and deadfalls, all sized up for 3-meter-tall aliens. The first Krazoth warrior stepped on what looked like solid ground, but was actually a carefully camouflaged pit. It fell with a surprised roar, impaling itself on sharpened wooden stakes below. The second triggered a deadfall, a massive log suspended above the trail that dropped with crushing force. The third alien, hearing its comrades' cries, turned to run directly into a net of steel cables that sprang up from the forest floor, entangling its limbs. The more it struggled, the tighter the cables became, cutting into the joints of its exoskeleton, where the armor was weakest. The fourth and final warrior was the most experienced. It recognized the trap and tried to retreat, moving with impressive speed despite its bulk. But it had never faced human hunters before. It didn't understand that sometimes the prey circles behind the predator. Samantha herself had looped around during the confusion. As the alien passed her position, she triggered the last trap, a simple tripwire connected to a system of pulleys. The wire caught the Krazoth at ankle height, jerking it off its feet. Before it could recover, tranquilizer darts hit it from 3 different directions. The darts contained a powerful sedative derived from the Krazoth's own biology, based on samples collected from previous captures. Within minutes, the entire patrol was neutralized. Samantha's team moved quickly, securing the unconscious alien with reinforced restraints, while other teams dealt with the remaining warriors, salvaging weapons and technology from the dead, and preparing the captured one for transport. Clean operation, Eric said, grinning despite his exhaustion. They never even got a shot off. Samantha nodded but didn't smile. Let's move. We need to be back at base before they send a search party. As her team worked, Samantha's radio crackled. Green, this is Command. Status report. She recognized the voice of Nathan Peters, the former history professor who now coordinated several resistance cells in the region. Package secured, she replied. 3 eliminated, 1 for questioning. No casualties on our side. Excellent, Nathan said. Bring it in, and Samantha. We have a visitor at base. Someone you'll want to meet. When Samantha's team arrived at their hidden base in the old mining complex beneath the mountains, they found Nathan waiting with a strange figure. At first glance, Samantha thought it was a child, but as she drew closer, she realized it was definitely not human. The being stood about 4 feet tall, with iridescent skin that shifted color slightly as it moved. Its face featured 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern, and instead of a mouth, it had what looked like small feelers that rippled when it spoke. Captain Green, Nathan said formally, this is Council Observer Zaltara. She represents the Galactic Council and has come to witness our resistance firsthand. Samantha stared in shock. There are other aliens? A Galactic Council? Zaltara's feelers rippled in what might have been amusement. Indeed, Captain. And the entire galaxy is watching Earth with great interest. You see, no one has ever fought the Krazoth like this before. No one has ever turned the hunters into the hunted. Zaltara sat across from Nathan Peters in the dimly lit conference room of the resistance base. Her 4 eyes blinked independently as she observed the humans around her. Captain Samantha Green stood by the door, arms crossed, while Steve Martinez fiddled with a piece of alien technology at the table. So you're telling us that we're not alone in fighting these things? Nathan asked, still processing the revelation that there was a whole galactic community out there. Not exactly, Zaltara replied, her translator converting her musical language into English. The Krazoth have conquered 17 systems before yours. Most species submitted without significant resistance. Why? Samantha demanded. Why not fight back? Zaltara's skin shifted to a deeper blue, which they had learned indicated sadness or regret. Most spacefaring species evolved from herbivores or omnivores. My own people, the Trillax, developed from colony insects. We value harmony and cooperation. The Varandi are descendants of herd animals who developed intelligence as a survival adaptation. The Krazuth were the only major predator species to achieve faster-than-light travel. She gestured to a small device on the table, which projected a holographic image of various alien species. Our physical forms reflect our evolutionary paths. The Krazuth are naturally equipped for combat. Most council species are not. Nathan leaned forward, his historian's mind connecting the dots. But humans evolved differently. We're omnivores, who became apex predators through intelligence and tool use, not physical strength. Precisely, Zaltara said, her skin lightening to a gentle green. That makes you unique. When news reached the council that a physically inferior species was actively hunting the Krazuth, many didn't believe it. I was sent to verify these reports. Steve looked up from the device he was working on. So we're like the galaxy's underdogs? Not familiar with that term, Zaltara said. But if you mean you are fighting against overwhelming odds, then yes. And the galaxy is watching with great interest. Samantha pushed away from the wall. We're not doing this to entertain spectators. We're fighting for our survival. Of course, Zaltara said quickly. But you must understand what your resistance means. For generations, dozens of species have lived under Krazuth dominance, believing there was no alternative. You are showing them another path. The meeting was interrupted when Eric burst into the room. We've got movement. Big movement. A Krazuth hunting party is heading this way, at least 20 warriors. Nathan stood quickly. How did they find us? They didn't, Samantha said, checking the tablet Eric handed her. They're doing a standard sweep pattern. But they'll be right on top of us in 2 hours if they maintain course. We need to evacuate, Steve said, already gathering his equipment. No. Nathan replied firmly. We've spent months setting up this base. We have wounded people who can't be moved quickly. And most of our research data is stored here. Zaltara watched this exchange with all 4 eyes wide open. You're going to fight them? 20 Krazuth warriors? Not exactly, Samantha said with a grim smile. We're going to hunt them. The next hour was a flurry of activity as the resistance members prepared. Unlike the panicked evacuation Zaltara expected, the humans moved with practiced efficiency. Some prepared defensive positions around the base entrances. Others gathered in small teams and headed out into the forest with specialized equipment. Nathan explained their strategy as they worked. The Krazuth sleep 12 hours a day. Humans only need 5 to 8 hours. That gives us a huge advantage in sustained operations. Zaltara as translator struggled with her surprised exclamation. 12 hours? Are you certain? Absolutely. Steve confirmed, showing her data collected from their captured specimens. Their high-metabolism predator biology requires significant recovery time. They're also creatures of habit. They hunt, they feed, then they sleep. Very predictable once you understand the pattern. Outside the base, Samantha led 3 teams into strategic positions around the Krazuth hunting party's projected path. Her people carried an odd assortment of weapons, some conventional firearms, but also many improvised devices made from salvaged alien technology. Remember, she told her teams over the radio, we're not trying to take them all out. We just need to redirect them away from the base. Back at the command center, Nathan showed Zaltara their tracking system. Red dots on the screen represented the approaching Krazuth, while blue dots showed the positions of Samantha's teams. The Krazuth rely heavily on their sensory advantages, Nathan explained. Superior hearing, thermal vision, and scent detection. But those strengths can be turned against them. On the screen, Zaltara watched as Samantha's teams activated devices similar to the ones they had used in their earlier ambush: sound projectors, heat emitters, and scent dispensers. These created false trails leading away from the base and toward an abandoned industrial area 5 miles east. Will they fall for such simple tricks? Zaltara asked. Nathan smiled. The Krazuth are intelligent, but they're arrogant. They don't expect prey to understand their hunting methods, let alone counter them. On the hillside overlooking the forest, Samantha watched through binoculars as the Krazoth hunting party changed direction, following the false trails her team had created. The massive aliens moved with deadly grace through the trees, their armor gleaming dully in the afternoon sun. "They've taken the bait," she reported over the radio. "Moving east toward the old factory complex." "Good work," Nathan replied. "Withdraw to secondary positions. Let's make sure they keep going that direction." As Samantha's team began to pull back, one of the Krazoth suddenly stopped. It was larger than the others, with distinctive markings on its armor that identified it as a hunt leader. It raised its head, testing the air, then made a sharp gesture to the others. 3 warriors immediately broke from the main group, turning back toward one of the sound projectors. They had detected the deception. "We've got a problem," Samantha radioed. "They've made our tech. Send in the drones." From hidden caches in the forest, small aerial drones launched into the sky. These weren't military-grade machines, but civilian models repurposed by the Resistance. Each carried a small payload, not explosives, but concentrated chemical attractants derived from the Krazoth's own biology. The drones darted over the hunting party, releasing their payloads in a fine mist. The chemicals triggered the Krazoth's instinctive territorial responses. The hunt leader roared in challenge, its attention now fully focused on this new threat. The entire hunting party changed course again, pursuing the drones as they zipped eastward. "That's it," Samantha said, allowing herself a small smile. "Chase the shiny things, you oversized lizards." By sunset, the Krazoth hunting party had been led 5 miles away from the Resistance base. They had spent hours pursuing phantom targets through difficult terrain. Now, as their biological clocks demanded rest, they established a defensive perimeter in the abandoned factory complex, unaware that they were exactly where the humans wanted them. Back at the base, Zaltara watched the feed from small cameras. The Resistance had placed around the factory. The Krazoth warriors settled into their rest cycle, posting guards in a standard rotation. "Now what?" she asked. "Will you attack while they sleep?" Nathan shook his head. "We don't have the firepower to take on that many in direct combat, but we don't need to." He pointed to the screen where Steve's team was carefully approaching the perimeter of the factory complex. They carried what looked like modified irrigation equipment. "What are they doing?" Zoltara asked. "The Krazoth's sleep cycle is very deep," Nathan explained. "They're almost completely unresponsive for hours at a time. Steve's team is setting up a perimeter of their own, a chemical barrier containing a synthetic compound that blocks the Krazoth ability to detect human scent." Samantha, who had returned to base, joined them at the monitor. "By morning, they won't be able to track us by smell. They'll complete their sweep in the wrong direction, and our base remains safe." Zaltara's skin shifted to a bright yellow, indicating amazement. "You didn't need to kill them. You just needed to redirect them." "Exactly," Nathan said. "We fight smart, not hard. That's how humanity survived long before we had technology. It's in our DNA." As Zaltara prepared her secure transmission to the Galactic Council that night, she carefully considered her words. What she had witnessed wasn't just a clever tactical success. It was a fundamental shift in how warfare worked in the galaxy. The Council needed to understand that humans weren't just fighting back against the Krazoth, they were redefining the very concept of predator and prey. Her message was brief but clear. The humans are not winning through superior firepower or physical strength. They are winning because they understand something the Krazoth never learned. True hunting is done with the mind, not just the claws. And in that kind of hunt, humans may be the greatest predators the galaxy has ever seen. 2 years had passed since the Krazoth first arrived on Earth. What began as scattered resistance cells had grown into a coordinated global force. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a former military bunker expanded by human ingenuity and salvaged alien technology, Major Lavra Collins stood before a wall of screens displaying information from around the world. "Status report," she said to the communications officer beside her. "All cells checking in on schedule," replied Don Wilson, his fingers moving quickly over his console. Asian coalition reports successful raid on the Beijing processing center. European forces have disrupted supply lines between Paris and Berlin. African resistance has reclaimed control of the Cape Town water purification system. Lavra nodded, allowing herself a small smile. What had once seemed impossible was now becoming reality. Humanity was turning the tide, the command center buzzed. With activity as analysts monitored Krozeth communications, technicians worked on reverse-engineered alien equipment, and coordinators maintained contact with resistance cells worldwide. They called it the Human Defense Force, not an army in the traditional sense, but a network of fighters united by a common purpose. "Major Collins," called a voice from across the room, "Dr. Russell is on Secure Channel 3. He says it's urgent." Lavra moved to a private communication booth and activated the screen. The face of Dr. Kevin Russell appeared, looking tired but excited. His underwater research facility, hidden beneath an offshore oil platform in the Gulf of Mexico, had been working on their most ambitious project yet. "Tell me you have good news, Kevin," Lavra said. "Better than good," he replied, his eyes bright despite the dark circles beneath them. "We've done it. The countermeasure works." Lavra felt her heart rate increase. "You're certain? This isn't like our shield disruptors or jamming technology. There's no room for error here." "We've tested it extensively," Kevin assured her. "The bioweapon targets the symbiotic bacteria in the Krozeth digestive system with 100% efficiency. Without these bacteria, they cannot process food. They'll be forced to withdraw to their ships where they have alternative nutrition sources. And there's no risk to humans or Earth's ecosystem?" "None," Kevin confirmed. "The bacteria is completely unique to Krozeth biology. It won't affect any Earth life forms or other alien species. We've verified this with help from our Galactic Council contacts." Lavra took a deep breath. This could be the breakthrough they had been waiting for. Not a weapon of mass destruction, but a targeted approach that would force the Krozeth to retreat without widespread bloodshed. "How soon can you begin production?" she asked. "We already have. Small batches at first to be deployed in key locations. We can scale up within weeks." "Good work, Kevin. I'll inform the council immediately." After ending the call, Lavra made her way to the main conference room where the resistance leadership had gathered. Representatives from major cells around the world joined virtually, their faces appearing on screens around the table. Zaltara was also present, having become an official liaison between humanity and the Galactic Council. "Dr. Russell's team has succeeded," Lavra announced without preamble. "The bacterial countermeasure is ready for deployment." A cheer went up from several members, quickly followed by focused discussion of deployment strategies. 2 years of fighting had taught them to celebrate briefly and plan extensively. Nathan Peters, now serving as the group's chief strategist, outlined the approach. "We'll target their food processing centers first, then their hunting grounds. The effect won't be immediate. They'll have reserves, but within weeks, they'll face a critical shortage." "What about their response?" asked Maria Chun, leader of the Asian coalition. "They'll retaliate when they realize what we're doing." "Undoubtedly," Nathan agreed. "Which is why we'll coordinate this with conventional attacks on their command centers. We need to disrupt their communication and decision-making capabilities simultaneously." As the leaders discussed tactics, Zaltara observed with a mixture of amazement and concern. Her reports to the Galactic Council had documented humanity's remarkable resistance, but this marked a new phase. Humans weren't just surviving now. They were systematically dismantling the Krozeth occupation, thousands of miles away. Aboard the Krozeth command vessel hovering over what had once been New York City, Supreme Hunter Vexenar faced growing problems. The massive alien paced in his private chamber, irritation evident in every movement of his armored body. "Another hunting party lost?" he growled at the warrior standing before him. "How many does that make this lunar cycle?" 17, Supreme Hunter, the warrior replied, keeping his head lowered in submission. "And 3 supply convoys destroyed." Vexenar slammed a clawed fist into the metal wall, leaving deep gouges in the alien alloy. "It's not possible! These humans are prey. They have no natural weapons, no significant strength. How are they doing this? They fight differently, Supreme Hunter. They avoid direct confrontation. They set traps. They study our patterns and exploit them. Some warriors are beginning to speak of them with ... respect. Vexenar whirled on his subordinate. Respect? For prey? That is weakness talking. The next warrior I hear expressing such sentiment will be recycled for protein paste. Yet, despite his outward fury, Vexenar felt something unfamiliar gnawing at him: doubt. In all his cycles of conquest, he had never encountered a species like humans. They should have been easy to subjugate with their fragile bodies and limited technology. Instead, they had become the most formidable adversary the Krazoth had ever faced. Most troubling were the reports from other conquered worlds. Inspired by Earth's resistance, other species were beginning to fight back. Minor uprisings had been reported in 3 systems. Using tactics clearly learned from observing humans, Vexenar's brooding was interrupted by a priority alert. He activated the communication panel to see the agitated face of his chief biologist. Supreme Hunter, we have detected an engineered pathogen targeting our digestive symbiotes. It's spreading rapidly through our ground forces. Origin? Vexenar demanded. Unknown, but it must be the humans. The pathogen is precisely designed to affect only our biology. Countermeasures? The biologist's mandibles clicked nervously. We're working on it, but this will take time. Meanwhile, affected warriors will need to return to the ships for synthetic nutrition. Vexenar dismissed the communication and resumed pacing. This was no longer just resistance. It was a coordinated offensive. The prey was hunting the predator. Back at the Human Defense Force headquarters, Lavra reviewed the initial reports of the bioweapon deployment. Results were promising. Krazoth forces in several regions were already withdrawing to their ships as their ability to process local food failed. It's working, she told the assembled leadership team. Now we move to Phase 2. Phase 2 involved a series of coordinated strikes against Krazoth command centers worldwide. Not frontal assaults, the aliens still held overwhelming firepower. Advantages, but precision operations targeting communication nodes, power systems, and environmental controls. Teams deployed with reverse-engineered Krazoth technology allowing them to penetrate energy shields. They carried weapons designed by human engineers that exploited specific weaknesses in alien armor. They moved with a confidence born of 2 years of learning their enemy's every habit and vulnerability. In Sydney, resistance fighters disabled the environmental systems of a major Krazoth base, forcing the temperature-sensitive aliens to evacuate. In Cairo, a team infiltrated the command center and uploaded a virus that scrambled translation systems, leaving the occupiers unable to communicate with their human captives. Outside Moscow, carefully placed charges severed power conduits too. Weapons emplacements, leaving a processing center defenseless. Against a larger attack, each operation was carefully planned to minimize casualties on both sides. This wasn't about extermination, it was about making Earth too costly to hold. Zaltara accompanied a team led by Samantha Green on a mission to capture a Krazoth communication relay near the former Vancouver. As they approached the facility, under cover of darkness, Zaltara marveled at the humans' adaptation. They moved silently through the forest, their bodies painted to mask heat signatures, their equipment designed to avoid detection. 2 years ago we could barely fight back, Samantha whispered as they paused behind a fallen tree. Now we're taking the fight to them. The operation proceeded with practiced precision. Snipers neutralized perimeter guards with tranquilizer rounds. Tech specialists bypassed security systems. Within 20 minutes, they had secured the facility with minimal violence. As Samantha's team downloaded critical data from the Krazoth systems, Zaltara accessed the communication array to send an update to the Galactic Council. Her message was brief but historic. Humans have shifted from resistance to offensive operations. Krazoth control of Earth is failing. The unthinkable is happening. The apex predators are being driven back by what they considered prey. Across Earth, similar operations unfolded. The Krozeth, weakened by the bioweapon and confused by simultaneous attacks on multiple fronts, began to consolidate their forces. They abandoned smaller outposts, withdrew from difficult terrain, and focused on defending their primary landing zones. For the first time since their arrival, the Krozeth were not hunting. 5 years after the Krozeth ships first darkened Earth's skies, humanity had reclaimed most of their world. Major cities once occupied by alien forces now flew human flags again. The massive processing centers where people had been sorted like cattle stood empty or repurposed. Only the original landing zones remained under Krozeth control, heavily fortified and surrounded by human defense force positions. Commander Olivia Wright stood at the viewport of the shuttle as it ascended through the atmosphere. Despite having seen the images many times, the sight of Earth from above still moved her. Blue oceans, white clouds, and green-brown landmasses, a beautiful world worth fighting for. And they had fought harder than anyone thought possible. 5 minutes to docking, Commander, the pilot called over his shoulder. Olivia nodded, straightening her uniform. Today would make history, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. The Galactic Council had arranged this meeting at humanity's request. After 5 years of bloodshed, it was time to end this war. The shuttle approached a massive vessel unlike any human or Krozeth design. The Galactic Council ship was a wonder of engineering, a gleaming silver structure with graceful curves and pulsing light patterns along its hull. It had taken position in neutral space between Earth and the remaining Krozeth fleet. As Olivia's shuttle docked, she reviewed the terms one final time. Earth's demands were simple but non-negotiable. The Krozeth would leave Earth peacefully and release all conquered worlds from their empire. Earth would join the Galactic Council as an independent power. Any violation would trigger the deployment of weapons that would make the bacterial countermeasures seem merciful by comparison. Dr. Kevin Russell had been busy these past 5 years. The bioweapon that disrupted the Krozeth digestive system was just the beginning. Human scientists now understood Krozeth biology better than any other species in the galaxy, including the Krozeth themselves. Zyltara waited for Olivia as she exited the shuttle. The small alien diplomat had become humanity's strongest ally in the council, tirelessly advocating for Earth's recognition. "They're waiting in the main chamber," Zyltara said, her skin a nervous yellow-green. "Supreme Hunter Vexenar himself has come." "Good," Olivia replied calmly. "It's time he and I met face to face." They walked through corridors of a design no human engineer would have conceived, walls that seemed alive with subtle movements, lighting that adjusted automatically to the comfort of those walking beneath it, gravity that shifted imperceptibly. To accommodate different species, the main chamber was a vast circular space with a round table at its center. Representatives from 7 council species sat at intervals around one side. On the other side waited a delegation of Krozeth, their massive armored forms making the furniture seem small and fragile. At their center sat Supreme Hunter Vexenar. Olivia recognized him from intelligence briefings, larger than the others, with distinctive scarring on his exoskeleton and eyes that glowed a deeper amber. He had led the invasion of Earth personally, confident in an easy victory. Now he sat rigidly, mandibles twitching with barely controlled rage. As Olivia entered, all eyes turned to her. She felt the weight of the moment, but kept her expression neutral as she took her seat directly across from Vexenar, the council elder. A willowy being with translucent skin opened the proceedings. "We gather today to negotiate terms between the Krozeth Empire and Earth. This conflict has destabilized 3 sectors and threatens the balance of power throughout the galaxy. It must end." Vexenar spoke first, his harsh voice grating through. "The translator, there is nothing to negotiate. The humans have used biological weapons against us. They have violated the natural order. Prey does not hunt predator." Olivia met his gaze steadily. "And yet, here we are. Your forces retreating, your supply lines broken, your conquered worlds in rebellion. Perhaps your understanding of the natural order was flawed." The Krozeth leader's claws scraped against the table. "You think you've won?" We could still burn your world to ash from orbit. You could try, Olivia replied, her voice level. But then you would face weapons far worse than what we've deployed so far. Weapons tailored to your genetic code, capable of reaching your homeworld through your own ships. Are you willing to risk the extinction of your entire species? Murmurs rippled around the table. The council representative shifted uncomfortably. Such threats violated diplomatic protocols, but no one moved to censure Olivia. They had all seen what humans were capable of when pushed too far. Vexinar's eyes narrowed. You bluff? Do I? Olivia activated a small device, projecting a hologram above the table. It showed molecular structures and genetic sequences. Your people took human test subjects. We took Krazoth prisoners. The difference is what we learned from them. Dr. Russell sends his regards, by the way. He wanted me to assure you that this new pathogen works much faster than the digestive bacteria disruptor. No treatment, no cure, just a swift end. The room fell silent. Even Vexinar seemed momentarily at a loss for words, Olivia continued, her tone softening slightly. But that's not what we want. Humans don't seek extinction, not even for those who tried to enslave us. We want peace, we want our world. And, we want a place in the galactic community. The council elder spoke again. The terms proposed by Earth are reasonable. The Krazoth will withdraw from Earth immediately. All human prisoners will be returned. Additionally, the council has voted to admit Earth as a full member with all associated rights and protections. Vexinar's massive form seemed to deflate slightly. For the first time in his long life, he faced total defeat. And what of our empire? Would you have us surrender everything we've built across generations? Your empire was built on suffering. Zaltara interjected. How many species have you subjugated? How many worlds have you stripped of resources? The council has been complicit through inaction, but that ends today. Olivia raised a hand. We don't demand your immediate withdrawal from all conquered worlds. That would create chaos. But you will begin a phased liberation with council oversight. Each world will determine its own future. The negotiations continued. For hours, addressing details of withdrawal timelines, prisoner exchanges, and technology transfers. Throughout it all, Vexinar's rage seemed to transform gradually into something else, a reluctant respect. As the session neared its conclusion, the Krazoth leader finally asked the question that had troubled him for years. How? How did you defeat us? You have no natural weapons, no evolutionary advantages. You were meant to be easy prey. Olivia considered her answer carefully. That was your fundamental misunderstanding. Humans didn't become Earth's dominant species through claws or armor or venom. We survived through cooperation, through problem-solving, through persistence. When a problem seems insurmountable, we adapt. When we can't win through strength, we find another way. She leaned forward. And most importantly, we don't see ourselves as either predator or prey. We're something else entirely. We're builders and dreamers and, yes, when necessary, fighters. You saw our physical form and dismissed us. That was your mistake. The formal agreement was signed within hours. For the first time in known history, the Krazoth Empire had been forced to retreat. As news spread throughout the galaxy, worlds that had lived under occupation for generations began to hope. 6 months later, Olivia stood with Zaltara on the observation deck of Earth's first official diplomatic vessel. Below them, construction. Crews worked on what would become Earth's Galactic Council Embassy, a symbol of humanity's new role in interstellar affairs. What happens now? Zaltara asked. Your people have proven themselves formidable. Many council species fear you might become the new Krazoth. Olivia shook her head. That's not our path. We fought because we had to, not because we wanted to. There's a saying from our history. I am become death, destroyer of worlds. It was spoken by one of our scientists after creating a terrible weapon. We've learned that lesson power without wisdom destroys itself. Then what do humans want from the stars? The same things we've always wanted, to explore, to learn, to connect. And yes, to ensure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else again. On a distant world, in a research facility deep within Krozoth territory, a young scientist named Kellner studied footage of human behavior. Unlike her superiors, she did not view the defeat as merely a military setback. She saw it as a profound opportunity for her species to evolve. What fascinated her most was not human weapons or tactics, but their history of domesticating wolves, apex predators that became allies, companions, and eventually friends. Ancient enemies transformed into partners. Her research was considered controversial, even dangerous. But as rebellions inspired by humanity spread across the empire, more Krozoth began to listen. Perhaps true strength wasn't found in domination but in cooperation. Perhaps the old ways of predator and prey needed to change. The galaxy would never be the same again. A new era had begun, sparked by an improbable victory on a small blue planet in an unremarkable spiral arm of the Milky Way, and humanity was just getting started. The year was 2157, and humanity had spread across the solar system with thriving colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan. Earth remained the heart of human civilization. But people now lived and worked throughout the solar system. The United Earth Defense Force, known as the UEDF, protected these colonies and kept the peace between them. Despite all their explorations, humans had never encountered alien life. Commander Jack Morrison sat in the captain's chair on the bridge of the UES Athena, a sleek warship that served as the flagship of Defense Group 7. The ship glided silently through space on a routine patrol near the orbit of Neptune. Morrison was a tall man with short brown hair and deep blue eyes that reflected the stars on the viewscreen. He had served in the UEDF for 20 years and commanded the Athena for the last 5. He and his crew knew each other well and worked together like a well machine. "Sir, I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors," said Officer Kevin Bell from the sensor station. His fingers moved quickly over the control panel as he tried to make sense of the readings. "Energy signatures unlike anything I've seen before." Morrison leaned forward in his chair. "Can you put it on screen?" The main view screen changed to show a section of space that looked empty at first glance. But as they watched, a shimmer appeared, like heat rising from hot pavement. The shimmer grew and stretched until it formed what looked like a tear in the fabric of space itself. From this spatial rift emerged a ship, then another and another, until 12 vessels of similar design floated in formation. "Are they from one of the outer colonies?" asked First Lieutenant Alan Garcia, Morrison's second-in-command. He was a compact man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Negative," said Bell, shaking his head. "These designs don't match anything in our database, and the energy readings are off the charts." Morrison stood up and walked closer to the view screen. "Open a channel on all frequencies? Let's see if they respond to standard greetings." Communications Officer Vicky Rhodes nodded and sent the message. "Channel open, sir. Broadcasting in all known human languages." Minutes passed with no response. The alien vessels remained in formation, neither advancing nor retreating. Morrison ordered detailed scans while they waited. The ships were larger than the Athena, with smooth hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They had no visible weapon systems, but sensors detected massive power sources at their cores. "Sir, they're not responding to any of our hails," Rhodes reported after 20 minutes of trying. Morrison nodded. "Keep the channel open. Lieutenant Garcia, send a tight beam message to Earth Command. They need to know about this immediately." While Garcia relayed the message, Morrison studied the alien ships. His years of experience told him these were warships, despite their lack of visible weapons. Something about their formation and the way they held position spoke of military discipline back on Earth. The message from the Athena reached UEDF headquarters in Geneva. Admiral Susan Wright was a veteran of the Mars conflict and had led the UEDF for the past 8 years. She had gray hair cut in a practical style and wore her uniform with pride. When the report about the alien ships came in, she immediately called an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. The council members gathered in the secure conference room deep inside UEDF headquarters. The room had no windows and was shielded against all forms of surveillance. Admiral Wright stood at the head of the table, with Intelligence Officer Donna Hayes beside her. Hayes was young for her position, but her brilliant mind and keen insights had earned her the respect of everyone in the room. 12 unknown vessels have appeared near Neptune, Admiral Wright said without preamble. Commander Morrison of the UES Athena is maintaining position and attempting contact. So far they have not responded. She nodded to Hayes, who activated the holographic display in the center of the table. Images of the alien ships appeared, rotating slowly to show their unusual design. These vessels don't match any known human designs, Hayes said, pointing to specific features. Their energy signatures are off the charts, suggesting technology far beyond our own. They emerge from what appears to be an artificial spatial anomaly, which implies they may not be from our solar system at all. General Edward Wells, head of the Mars Defense Command, frowned at the images. Are they hostile? Have they made any aggressive moves? Not yet, Admiral Wright replied. But their sudden appearance and refusal to communicate is concerning. We should assume they're intelligent and potentially dangerous until proven otherwise, said Hayes, echoing the thoughts of Lieutenant Garcia aboard the Athena. Their technology alone suggests a civilization at least as advanced as our own, possibly more so. The Council debated their options. Some argued for immediate military response, while others advocated for continued attempts at peaceful contact. Admiral Wright listened to all sides before making her decision. We will maintain a defensive posture, she said firmly. I'm ordering all 3 battle groups to mobilize immediately. Battle Group 1 will remain in Earth orbit. Groups 2 and 3 will move to defensive positions around Mars and the Jupiter colonies. As the Council members left to carry out their assignments, Admiral Wright turned to Hayes. What's your gut telling you about this? Hayes considered for a moment. They could have attacked immediately if that was their intention. The fact that they're just watching suggests they're studying us, perhaps assessing our capabilities before making their next move, Wright nodded. That's my read as well. Let's hope we can establish communication before either side does something regrettable. Meanwhile, aboard the Athena, Morrison received new orders from Earth Command. They were to maintain their position and continue attempts at communication, but avoid any actions that might be perceived as threatening. Additional ships from Battle Group 7 were en route to support the Athena. Still no response to our hails, sir, Rhodes reported. But there's something interesting. They appeared to be scanning our communication satellites and relay stations throughout the system. Morrison raised an eyebrow. They're eavesdropping on our communications? It looks that way, Rhodes confirmed. But they're being selective about it. They seem particularly interested in our entertainment broadcasts. This struck Morrison as odd. Why would advanced aliens care about human entertainment? Before he could consider this further, Bell called out from the sensor station. Sir, they're moving. The alien fleet is accelerating toward Earth. Morrison immediately returned to his command chair. Battle stations. Inform Earth Command that the aliens are on the move. What's their speed? They're accelerating at 6 Gs. And climbing, Bell reported, surprise evident in his voice. At this rate, they'll reach Earth orbit in just over 3 days. That's faster than anything we have, Garcia said quietly. Morrison's face remained calm despite the gravity of the situation. Rhodes, continue broadcasting our peaceful intentions. Bell, keep tracking them and update Earth Command on their trajectory every 30 minutes. As the alien fleet moved deeper into the solar system, Admiral Wright ordered the immediate mobilization of all UEDF forces. The UES Athena would serve as the first line of contact, supported by the rest of Battle Group 7. If the aliens proved hostile, Earth would not be caught unprepared. For 3 days, tension mounted throughout the solar system. Civilian ships were ordered to dock at the nearest station. Military vessels moved into defensive formations. On Earth, people looked up at the night sky, wondering if their world was about to change forever. Commander Morrison barely slept during those 3 days. He spent most of his time on the bridge, studying what little data they had on the alien vessels and preparing his crew for whatever might come. The Athena was a powerful ship, but it was clear they were outmatched by the alien technology. "Sir," said Bell as the third day dawned, "the alien fleet has stopped just beyond Mars orbit. They're holding position." Morrison exhaled slowly. "Keep monitoring them." "Rhodes, are they still ignoring our communications?" Before Rhodes could answer, her console lit up with an incoming transmission. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Sir, they're responding." "We're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet." The bridge fell silent as Morrison gave the order. "Put it through."